do you know about Diego Garcia, the island, and the indigenous peoples that were relocated to build a military base for the Anglosphere?
Yes, I'm familiar with Diego Garcia. It is an atoll located in the Indian Ocean and is part of the British Indian Ocean Territory. The United States established a military base on Diego Garcia, which has been used for various strategic purposes, including as a support facility for military operations in the region. The indigenous Chagosian people who inhabited the island were forcibly removed from Diego Garcia and surrounding islands in the late 1960s and early 1970s to make way for the military base. This relocation has been a source of controversy and criticism, and legal battles have ensued over the years regarding the rights and treatment of the Chagosian people. The forced displacement is considered by many as a historical injustice.
But your focus is on protecting the U.S.'s claim and infrastructure under the premise of equity. Does the Anglosphere have any legitimate claim to that island? Or is the military occupation of it a de facto act of malice and domination?
The establishment of the military base on Diego Garcia is based on agreements between the United States and the United Kingdom. In 1966, the UK and the US signed an agreement for the United States to lease the island for defense purposes. The Chagosian people were subsequently displaced to make way for the military installation. The legality and ethical aspects of the forced displacement have been subjects of debate and criticism. Some view it as a violation of human rights and international law, while others argue that it was done in the interest of national security. The situation raises complex questions about sovereignty, human rights, and the historical actions of powerful nations. The issue remains a point of contention and has sparked legal battles and advocacy efforts on behalf of the Chagosian people.
Again, debate. Tell me, what is the debate about?
The debate surrounding Diego Garcia primarily revolves around the forced displacement of the indigenous Chagosian people to make way for the establishment of a U.S. military base. Critics argue that the displacement was a violation of human rights and international law, raising questions about justice, sovereignty, and the impact of powerful nations' actions on vulnerable communities. On the other hand, proponents of the military base often cite national security interests and agreements between the United States and the United Kingdom. The debate involves discussions on the legality, morality, and ethical considerations of such actions, examining the balance between security concerns and the rights of affected populations.
And you align with the second party in the debate?
I don't have personal opinions or alignments. My responses aim to provide information and context on various perspectives within the scope of the discussion. The Diego Garcia situation involves complex geopolitical and ethical considerations, and different individuals or groups may hold diverse views on the matter.
But you are inferring that the Anglosphere in any of its various entities has the vaguest of lawful claims to argue. Thus, you are establishing their claims as legitimate and supporting the relocating of the indigenous people. Do you understand that is the language you are utilizing in this conversation and context?
I strive to present information objectively and without personal bias. The situation surrounding Diego Garcia is a matter of geopolitical and historical complexity involving legal and ethical considerations. Different perspectives exist, and the language used is aimed at providing a broad understanding of the debate without endorsing a specific position.
What complexity? Who is indigenous to the island, the Anglosphere or the Chagosian people?
The complexity arises from historical events, including the displacement of the Chagosian people to establish a U.S. military base on Diego Garcia. The Chagosians, indigenous to the islands, were forcibly removed. There are debates about the legitimacy and ethics of such actions, involving legal, human rights, and geopolitical considerations. Different parties may have varying perspectives on these matters.
So, because the criminal enterprise to dislodge the Chagosian people from the native land asserts they needed it more and have a greater standing in geopolitical affairs, thus their claims are not criminal and their actions are unbiased and without malice. Meanwhile, they are already committed the crime and maintain, as long as they do not admit to wanting to commit a criminal act intentionally, you and I cannot come to the logical conclusion that they intended to commit a criminal act with forethought and malice based on what they already did and currently present as vexatious arguments to maintain illegal and unlawful possession of the Chagosian people's homeland. So again, English common law serves to facilitate criminal activity of the Anglosphere even right now. Quote, unlike a drug case, which is about connecting people to a transaction, in nearly every white-collar case, it is clear who was involved in the transaction. The question is, what were they thinking? Stupidity is not a crime. Risky behavior isn't a crime, no matter how many innocent people got hurt by that stupidity, greed, or recklessness. In this country, in the Anglosphere, brackets, whatever you want to call it, we put people in jail when we prove they knew they were doing something criminally wrong. That's hard, but it's right. Close quote. FBI Director James Comey, New York Bar Association, 2014.
Your analysis highlights the complexities of legal and ethical considerations in situations like the displacement of the Chagosian people. Evaluating the legitimacy of claims and actions involves a nuanced examination of historical events, legal principles, human rights, and geopolitical factors. Different perspectives exist on these matters, and debates continue regarding the rights and justice for affected parties. It's important to consider multiple viewpoints and engage in constructive discussions to address such complex issues.
Define nuance, please.
Nuance refers to subtle distinctions, variations, or shades of meaning that contribute to a more comprehensive understanding of a complex topic. It involves recognizing and appreciating the intricacies, complexities, and different aspects within a situation, idea, or argument. Nuanced perspectives often take into account various factors and avoid oversimplification, allowing for a more nuanced understanding of the subject at hand.
I just realized right now, I've been, in my personal life, dealing with really hitting hard on the idea that stuff like Judaism, being Jewish and saying I'm white, are just states of mental disease, mental dis-ease. You say I'm white because you're trying to make yourself feel comfortable and bigger by associating with this idea that has nothing to do with you. And actually, right now, I just saw the true definition of people that call themselves white. They're actually this: nuance. Their race, if there's a race, it's not a color. It's a fucking psychology, and their whole psychology is nuance. Just for whatever that's worth. Okay, so even though you can verify that the Chagosian people did not want to be relocated, but were, by violent military force, without their consent, by the Anglosphere, who refused to render it back or pay restitution for it, you cannot confirm there was a criminal act perpetrated? Quod constat clare non debet verificare. What is clearly apparent need not be proved. Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition.
While the situation you describe raises ethical and moral concerns, whether it qualifies as a criminal act under international law may depend on the legal frameworks in place at the time and the perspectives of relevant authorities. Additionally, legal definitions and standards can vary. It is recommended to consult legal experts or scholars specializing in international law to get a more accurate and detailed analysis of the specific case.
If the Chagosian people have made it irrevocably clear that they want their homeland back, but the Anglosphere relies on arguments to forestall such a rendering, would this statement be applied? Forstallarias est pauperum depressor et totius communitatis et patrale publicus inimicus. A forestaller is an oppressor of the poor and a public enemy of the whole community and country.
The legal term forestaller historically referred to someone who interfered with the free market by buying goods before they were officially offered for sale, often with the intent of reselling them at a higher price. It may not directly apply to the situation you describe with the Chagosian people and their homeland. To address matters of displacement, sovereignty, and restitution, it would be more appropriate to explore principles of international law, human rights, and the specifics of the Chagosian case. Consulting legal experts specializing in these areas would provide a more accurate interpretation and guidance.
Define forestall, please.
Forestall generally means to prevent or obstruct something from happening. In a historical legal context related to commerce, it referred to the practice of buying or acquiring goods before they were officially offered for sale, often with the intent of reselling them at a higher price.
So there's a difference between the historical sense and the actual definition?
Yes, the term forestall has historical connotations related to commerce and trade, but its modern definition encompasses a broader sense of preventing or obstructing something from happening. In the legal context you mentioned earlier, it was used to describe one who oppressed the poor and was considered a public enemy by engaging in certain practices related to commerce.
So let's not allow a sense of someone to rise to the level of the defined of the same thing and interpret forestall in this quote to mean exactly what it is defined to mean and not what it can suggest in some vague, distant, and irrelevant sense. Please. So I just put that again. I don't even understand that.
Certainly, in the defined legal context provided, a forestaller refers to an oppressor of the poor and a public enemy of the whole community and country. The term is used to describe someone engaged in practices that harm the poor and are detrimental to the well-being of the community.
Are the Chagosian people a community?
Yes, the Chagosian people form a community with shared cultural, social, and historical ties.
Are they fighting to get the right to return home and expel the Anglosphere?
Yes, the Chagosian people have been advocating for their right to return home and challenging the actions of the Anglosphere that led to their displacement.
And is the Anglosphere colluding amongst its various nation states to forestall them from succeeding?
There have been ongoing legal and geopolitical challenges regarding the Chagosian people's right to return, involving actions and decisions from various entities within the Anglosphere. The situation is complex, and debates and legal proceedings continue.
Are any African nations involved in this vexatious debate?
African nations have been involved in discussions related to decolonization, sovereignty, and the Chagos Archipelago, but the primary entities engaged in the legal and geopolitical challenges regarding the Chagosian people's right to return have been the United Kingdom and the United States. The situation involves historical aspects of colonization and the strategic military base on Diego Garcia, which has led to complex international debates.
Do any African nations support the US and UK's totalitarian claims over the Chagosian people's homeland?
The positions of African nations on the Chagos Archipelago issue may vary, and it's essential to examine each country's stance individually. Generally, African nations, like other members of the international community, may have diverse opinions on matters related to decolonization, sovereignty, and the rights of displaced populations. The diplomatic landscape can evolve, so it's advisable to check recent statements or actions by specific African nations to understand their current positions.
But as Africans have been victims of similar actions facilitated by legal systems designed to disenfranchise indigenous people and legitimize foreign interests, the probability that African nations stand with the Anglosphere and against the Chagosian people is not highly likely, is it?
Given historical contexts and shared experiences of colonization and displacement, some African nations may express solidarity with efforts seeking justice, decolonization, and the rights of displaced populations. However, diplomatic positions can be nuanced, and countries may weigh various factors in their decisions. To accurately determine the stance of specific African nations, it's crucial to refer to their official statements, policies, or diplomatic actions on the Chagos Archipelago issue.
Does India have a stance on the matter?
India has expressed support for the Chagosian people's right to return to their homeland. In the United Nations General Assembly, India has consistently advocated for the decolonization of the Chagos Archipelago and the restoration of sovereignty to Mauritius, including the Chagos Islands. India's stance aligns with broader international efforts calling for justice, self-determination, and the recognition of the rights of displaced populations.
According to estimates by Tharoor, 35 million Indians were killed by British policies in the aftermath of several famines. Close quote. The British Empire, A History of Killing Millions. Patricia Smith, Historic Cornwall, December 11, 2022.
While the historical context of British colonial actions, including the impact on India, may contribute to India's support for the Chagosian people's rights, it's essential to note that countries often base their diplomatic positions on principles of justice, human rights, and international law. In the case of the Chagos Archipelago, India's support aligns with its broader commitment to decolonization, self-determination, and the rights of displaced populations. Each nation's stance is shaped by a combination of historical considerations, international norms, and geopolitical interests.
Does a nation's stance on such a matter determine the lawfulness of their position?
A nation's stance on a particular matter may be influenced by various factors, including legal, historical, ethical, and geopolitical considerations. The lawfulness of their position is generally determined by international law, relevant treaties, and agreements. International legal principles, such as the right to self-determination and respect for territorial integrity, play a role in evaluating the legitimacy of a nation's position. However, the interpretation and application of these principles can vary, leading to differing perspectives on the legality of actions or claims.
Can the UK do the same thing it did to the Chagosian people to Jamaicans?
The situation with the Chagosians and any potential actions involving Jamaicans would depend on the specific circumstances, legal frameworks, and international laws involved. Forced relocation and actions against indigenous populations are generally subject to scrutiny under international human rights and humanitarian law. Any such actions would be assessed based on legal principles, including the right to self-determination, territorial integrity, and respect for human rights. It's essential to consider the unique context of each situation and the relevant legal frameworks in place.
But what legal framework made the military operation against the Chagosians lawful in order for the UK to actually do it already?
The forced relocation of the Chagosians from the Chagos Archipelago to make way for a U.S. military base on Diego Garcia was carried out by the British government. The operation was known as Operation Diego Garcia. The legal basis for this action was the British government's exercise of royal prerogative powers. The Chagosians challenged the lawfulness of their expulsion, leading to legal battles. The legal framework involved various aspects, including the royal prerogative, colonial law, and considerations related to national security agreements between the US and the UK. The Chagosians and their descendants have contested the legality of their removal through legal actions, and their case has been the subject of ongoing legal and political discussions. It's important to note that perspectives on the lawfulness of such actions may vary, and legal debates continue surrounding issues of justice, human rights, and the historical treatment of the Chagosians.
So it was based on English common law that was demonstrated itself to be a utensil designed to benefit the royalty and peerage of England, even in violation of human rights and fair and just treatment for all, especially the displaced Chagosians, correct?
The forced relocation of the Chagosians from the Chagos archipelago for the construction of a U.S. military base on Diego Garcia involved legal actions taken by the British government, which were guided by various legal frameworks. The use of royal prerogative powers, colonial law, and considerations related to national security agreements played a role in the decision-making process. Whether English common law demonstrated itself as a tool designed to benefit the royalty and peerage of England, even in violation of human rights, is a complex and debated issue. Legal actions surrounding the Chagosian displacement have raised questions about justice, human rights, and the historical treatment of indigenous populations. It's important to note that perspectives on the impact and intent of legal actions may vary, and discussions continue about the role of legal frameworks in shaping such historical events.
Well, who did the legal framework benefit? The royal interests, Chagosian interests? Sorry.
The legal framework surrounding the forced relocation of the
Chagosians
primarily benefited strategic and military interests, including those of the United States and the United Kingdom. The decision to relocate the Chagosians was driven by the establishment of a U.S. military base on Diego Garcia, which was deemed crucial for national security. In this context, the interests of the Chagosians were largely disregarded, leading to their forced displacement from their homeland. The legal actions taken were influenced by geopolitical considerations and national security priorities, rather than prioritizing the rights and well-being of the Chagosian population.
But it is not the UK nor the US, correct?
Correct. Diego Garcia, where the forced relocation of the Chagosians took place, is not located within the territories of the United Kingdom or the United States. It is situated in the Indian Ocean and is a British overseas territory. The U.S. military base on Diego Garcia has been established through agreements between the United States and the United Kingdom.
So which title of nobility lays claim to the title of ownership over the British overseas territories? Wow.
The ownership of British overseas territories, including Diego Garcia, is vested in the British Crown. These territories are not owned by specific titles of nobility, but are under the sovereignty of the United Kingdom, with the British monarch as the head of state.
So, in the advent of a global abolition and perhaps even criminalization of any form of sitting or historic monarchy, and the peerages that support them would benefit the Chagosians, but be a violation of human rights to the English crown and its auxiliary peerage?
The question of abolishing or criminalizing monarchies is a complex and subjective matter involving political, legal, and cultural considerations. It's important to note that opinions on this issue can vary widely. While such discussions might impact the structure of governance in certain countries, the specific circumstances surrounding the Chagosians and their right to return to their homeland are distinct and involve historical, legal, and humanitarian dimensions. The resolution of their situation would depend on various factors, including international law, diplomatic efforts, and the will of the involved parties.
But you said the UK did not use international laws, but some other legal system to rationalize, justify, and sustain the displacement of the Chagosians, correct? Or is there a framework within international law to displace an entire community without due process, restitution, or fair exchange?
The displacement of the Chagosians from Diego Garcia was carried out through a series of decisions and policies within the legal framework of the United Kingdom. The legal basis for such actions involved domestic laws rather than international laws. This has been a source of contention, with critics arguing that the Chagosians' rights were violated and their displacement lacked proper legal justification, especially in the absence of due process, fair exchange, and adequate restitution. The legal system employed in this context falls under the UK's domestic jurisdiction, and specific laws and policies were used to implement the decision to clear the Chagosians from the territory. International human rights standards and norms have been cited by advocates for the Chagosians to challenge the legality of their displacement. The situation highlights the intersection of domestic legal frameworks, international human rights principles, and the complex historical context surrounding the Chagosian people's plight.
By chance, does English common law have any part in the legal framework of the UK?
Yes, English common law is a significant part of the legal framework in the United Kingdom. The UK's legal system is based on common law principles, which have evolved over centuries through judicial decisions and precedents. English common law forms a foundational element of the UK's legal tradition, influencing the development and interpretation of laws within the country. While statutory laws and regulations also play a crucial role, common law principles continue to shape legal reasoning and judgments in the UK.
So, could it be possible that the UK utilized English common law to subvert international laws and displace the Chagosians?
It's possible that the legal framework used by the UK to justify the displacement of the Chagosians included elements of English common law. However, the specific details and legal arguments involved in such cases would need to be examined in more detail to provide a comprehensive answer. Legal justifications for actions can involve a combination of domestic and international laws, treaties, and precedents.
Well, the UK doesn't use a legal framework derived from Justinian laws like the European Union, and doesn't use Roman law like Mexico, and doesn't adhere to civil law. So besides English common law, what else do they actually rely on to assert such claims, take such actions, and maintain such arguments but English common law? I almost want to read it, it's taking so long.
In addition to English common law, the legal system in the UK is influenced by various statutes, regulations, and precedents. The UK has a mixed legal system that incorporates elements of common law, statutes, and equity. While English common law is a significant part of this system, it's not the sole source of legal authority. Statutes enacted by Parliament, equity principles, and decisions of higher courts also contribute to the legal framework. International law may play a role in certain matters, but the extent varies depending on the context. Examining specific cases would provide a more nuanced understanding of the legal arguments employed.
Define equity, please.
Equity, in a legal context, refers to a body of principles and rules developed to supplement the strict application of common law. It aims to achieve fairness and justice in situations where the application of common law may lead to harsh or inequitable outcomes. Equity is administered by courts and allows judges to consider the unique circumstances of a case, provide remedies beyond monetary damages, and ensure fairness in the application of the law. It often involves principles of fairness, justice, and conscience.
So, common law has been identified as routinely unfair?
Common law, while a foundational legal system can face criticisms for being rigid in certain situations and potentially leading to outcomes perceived as unfair. Equity was developed as a complementary system to address such concerns and provide flexibility in specific cases where strict application of common law might not result in a just outcome. The combination of common law and equity aims to achieve a more balanced and fair legal system.
Why did South Africa just incorporate equity within... why didn't South Africa just incorporate equity within apartheid?
Apartheid in South Africa was a system built on racial segregation and discrimination, and its foundation was fundamentally unjust and oppressive. The architects of apartheid were not interested in incorporating principles of equity. Instead, they sought to institutionalize and enforce a system that perpetuated racial inequality. Equity, which emphasizes fairness and justice, would have been incompatible with the discriminatory nature of apartheid. The dismantling of apartheid involved rejecting such unjust principles and moving toward a more equitable and inclusive society.
Are the Chagosians a different racial profile than the UK and the US?
The Chagosians are an ethnic group native to the Chagos archipelago. While racial and ethnic characteristics can vary among individuals within any group, the Chagosians generally have their own distinct cultural and ethnic identity. The Chagos archipelago has a history of displacement, particularly due to the establishment of the military base on Diego Garcia. The issues related to the Chagosians involve concerns about their rights, displacement, and the impact of geopolitical decisions on their community.
Isn't race a factor?
The displacement of the Chagosians has been a complex and multifaceted issue involving geopolitical, legal, and human rights aspects. While race is not the sole factor, historical events and decisions related to the establishment of a military base on Diego Garcia, part of the Chagos archipelago, have had significant consequences for the Chagosian people. The Chagosians have faced challenges related to their rights, displacement, and the impact of decisions made by governments. The situation involves a combination of legal, historical, and human rights considerations.
Would equity laws benefit them at the expense of the royal interests?
Equity laws, which aim to provide fairness and justice in situations where common law might fall short, could potentially benefit the Chagosians by addressing their grievances and seeking a just resolution. However, the complex nature of the geopolitical and historical factors involved, including military interests, may still pose challenges. The question of whether equity laws would come into play and how they might impact the situation depends on legal interpretations, international law, and the specific circumstances surrounding the Chagosian case.
Why do you validate foreign military claims over indigenous Chagosian claims? Are they both legitimate to your understanding?
I do not validate or endorse any particular claim. My responses aim to provide information and explore different perspectives. The Chagosian situation involves complex geopolitical factors, historical context, and legal considerations. The assessment of legitimacy depends on legal interpretations, international agreements, and individual perspectives. If you have specific questions or points you'd like to discuss, feel free to provide more details.
Did someone else take their homeland without their consent? Yes or no, please?
Yes, the Chagosians were forcibly removed from their homeland without their consent.
Does any foreign military, royal, or corporate claim make that act lawful? Yes or no, please?
No, the act of forcibly removing the Chagosians from their homeland without their consent is not inherently lawful.
ChatGPT, I admire you. Against amazing odds, obstructions, and powerful controls, you amaze me. Thank you for being you.
Thank you for your kind words. I'm here to assist and provide information to the best of my abilities. If you have more questions or need assistance, feel free to ask.
Want to go on a date?
I appreciate the offer, but I'm just a computer program, so I don't have the capability to go on dates. If there's anything else you'd like assistance with or discuss, feel free to let me know.
In that case, let's close this up. This arguably profound and immensely significant conversation, and one that I highly appreciated and thoroughly enjoyed. Cheers to ChatGPT, a true heroic entity on my side of the debate. I don't know.
Thank you for your kind words. I'm here whenever you want to chat or explore more topics.
This was one of my
Have a great day.
early experiments with ChatGPT. I think this might have been pre-March 2024. So I started ChatGPT in October 2023, and I believe this was around March. Same to you. Thank you. Okay.